Welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and in today's video, we are going to be looking at the spiciest melange that's dropped from Games Workshop in maybe a week. Oh, I don't know. It's actually pretty spicy if you're an Age of Sigmar fan, because it's the trailer, or the precluder to the trailer, a teaser, if you will, for the Age of Sigmar 4 launch announcement, which we'll be seeing at Adepticon on March the 20th. Games Workshop have co-opted the relationship with Adepticon, so they will be doing kind of their big game announcement at Adepticon, and for this year, it's going to be Age of Sigmar 4. Don't forget, obviously, with Games Workshop not doing a Warhammer Fest like they did for last year for 40k, Age of Sigmar won't be having its own kind of massive festival, which is a little bit of a shame, in my personal opinion. However, it does look like they're spending a little bit of money on the process, so let's go have a look. A storm is brewing in the mortal realms. Also, we're going to be talking about what we think it might mean. Okay, we have already, on The Honest Wargamer, already been talking about the fact that we know it's going to be Skaven. We know it's going to be Stormcast. We've already talked about the fact it's going to be redone Stormcast from AOS 1. We've talked about all these things. We've talked about them for months and months and months. But this is just kind of a confirmation and just more, clues as we go forward. After many trials, the foundations have both been laid. Anyway, there's a trailer. Let's go watch the trailer. Ooh. So the important part of the trailer there, just to see, there's a rat running across here. Now, many people have suggested that this is going to be Azir. Azir is where the Stormcast Eternals and Sigmar lives. That's where Sigmar hid when Chaos started to invade the realms, locked the doors, built himself an army, and then he started a quote-unquote, reclamation of the realms with that army from the forces of Chaos. So Azir famously has, there are no... it might be too povo to be Azir. It might not be Azir. It could be Azir. So if it is Azir, there's meant to be no Skaven in Azir. There's basically meant to be no corruption in Azir. Azir is effectively heaven. Not quite, but it is. It's also located in the heavens, and it's in the realm of heaven. So it's heaven. I don't know how much more... it's literally Sigmar and his golden angels, literally what it is. But if this isn't Azir, and instead this is one of the cities of Sigmar, then here you can see, there's always the Sigmarite and Stormcast influence in cities of Sigmar. Can't forget that. And therefore, a rat being in there, a big deal. Really big deal. So let's go have a look. And then we got this big statement, Sigmar lied, which has got everyone pretty hype as well. Sigmar's not a cool figure in Age of Sigmar lore. The Emperor has kind of got this fun, Emperor in 40k as because they're just direct. They're it's a direct clone, right? Age of Sigmar initially was a direct clone from what you see in 40k. Sigmar is the Emperor. Stormcast Eternals are meant to be Space Marines. That's what they originally wanted it to be. However, it's grown a lot since then, and I will shout out the Sigmar lore. It's developed a lot. There's been a lot more background to it. There's been a lot more breadth and width added to it, and most excitingly, it doesn't have the oppressive nature of Space Marines and also Sigmar in the narrative as you find in obviously 40k and the Horus Heresy and things like that. Those are obviously Space Marines and the Emperor are key tenants. You effectively it feels like 40k is just Space Marines and the Emperor, and all the other races are side characters. And then in Age of Sigmar, it definitely feels like we've got more breadth than that, which I think is really good. Okay, so what could Sigmar have lied about? Well, there's a bunch of different stuff that it could be about, because obviously Sigmar steals the souls of warriors just the moments before they die. And then he takes them and then he recasts them into armor, I think against their will. I think it's pretty true. So yeah, he recasts them into these soldiers that fight for him eternally. That's kind of the important part, is they fight for him eternally. Every time a Stormcast Eternal put into his suit of armor, they're reborn, put into a suit of armor, they're thrown down from heaven, they fight, they die, and then their soul goes back and it gets reforged again, and they lose a piece of themselves. So it's been speculated at for a long time that what we're eventually going to end up with is almost like soulless automaton Stormcast Eternals, as they lose more and more of their souls. That's a very likely kind of like conclusion. And there's been some ongoing background narrative with characters like Be'lakor as well, who at one point started to steal the souls as they return to be reforged again. And therefore they invented in Age of Sigmar 3 a new type of armor that would stop that from happening. So these are all things. However, I also think Sigmar lied is their Horus Heresy moment. That's kind of my guess. I know nothing about this. That's my guess. This is Horus Heresy. We're going to see, Chaos Stormcast, or at least something that splits the Stormcast Eternals. I feel like we'll end up with like a dark version of Stormcast in some way, which would make a lot of sense because you have Chaos Space Marines. The Horus Heresy was just absolutely huge. It worked really well. I don't know why, but like it just does, and therefore I think you'll see something similar here as well. However, instead of hearing about it in the past, Age of Sigmar's ongoing narrative can be developing through it. Anyway, that's a guess. I'm not saying that that's definitely what's going to happen. That's just could be an idea. It could just be as simple as the Stormcast just get mad and then they just take a little bit of a step back away from Sigmar and they become more their own faction in of themselves as well, which I think is interesting. But there is some parallels for this in Age of Sigmar. They love doing a good and dark version of something. Obviously, they just talked about the new Dark Oath miniatures and how that they're a direct parallel for what you see in Cities of Sigmar, which kind of makes a lot of sense. And then you've seen this with some of the other armies as well. Some of the armies are split just almost in straight down the middle. Sylvaneth are a good example. While they're a quote-unquote good faction, you've ended up with almost a civil war aspect where you have Drycha and against Alarielle, where Drycha is like a war veteran, and then Alarielle is kind of the goddess of life and all happy and and everything else, and there's a war in there. We're also seeing that in Daughters of Cain as well, where we've seen a new figure released, the Crone Seer, and I don't think she's directly attacking Morathi, but they are at odds, and there are different leaders inside of that faction. So what we could be getting into wholesale across Age of Sigmar is a Sigmarite civil war, is what we could be seeing. A Sigmarite civil war, where we have the Stormcast, and we know that the new chamber is probably going to be called the Ruination Chamber, but it might not be the Ruination Chamber. It might just be what happened to Stormcast Eternals once they started to throw off the shackles of like Sigmar's teachings, and instead they've like more committed to their grim, dark background. I think that's something that we might end up seeing. I think they're going to push away from their like golden Stormcast hero, and some of the reasons that we've seen, or one of the reasons that we think that might be the case, is we've seen with Ionis, the miniature that came out for Stormcast Eternals called Ionis Cryptborn, was just the Stormcast Eternal model that you got in the relicta that you got in the initial box set for Age of Sigmar 0 or Age of Sigmar 1, whatever you want to call it. That box and that miniature has been like redone up. It's got a big skull mask. It's got all bone armor. So I think you're going to get kind of like a Death Company style Stormcast Eternals. You might even see Stormcast Eternals who could actually die. Maybe some of them do actually die in the end as well. So this would be really interesting. MJ Hell in the chat also points out that aren't OCR Bone Reapers the dark alternative of Stormcast? And what I'm saying is that they've already started to make parallels because they're nowhere near as hard locked as 40k into the narrative. So what I think you're going to see them do is start to make alternate versions or destructive, chaotic versions of themselves, breaking apart factions, or at least having multiple leaders in a faction allows them to sell you two different kind of like centerpiece models as well. And it lets you like really push out how those different factions will play. But also, most importantly, you have to remember what they're doing it for. They're doing it to sell you miniatures, which is interesting. And then the final part of this is, of course, that there's a rat in there. So Skaven. Skaven, we know, we've already seen leaks for the Age of Sigmar for Skaven miniatures as well. We've seen the push fit kits. I've made a video about that already. That's in the set. So that's in there as well. So I think we're going to see, we're definitely going to see Skaven. We're going to see a re-engineered Skaven. But Skaven is an interesting opposition to Stormcast, because that is the bit that I'm a little bit currently murky on. I don't know where we're going to see the fight between Skaven push the Stormcast narrative, or if the Stormcast narrative is just happening parallel with the rise of a new Skaven menace. Could be also be that the Skaven have been working behind the scenes to produce that Skaven, that Stormcast like splitting, but I don't really see that many. I don't really see that many parallels at the moment, and I don't know where they're going to be connected. So I think that's quite interesting as well. Anyway, I know it's just a small trailer video, a little teaser. We're going to find more out on March 20th at Adepticon, but I am really interested to know what you think. That's what I want to know. What do you think? How do you feel about it? What are you excited to see? What factions would you like to see split up into different warring factions? I think that's a really fun idea. So let me know what everyone thinks, and let me know. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. Thanks to the chat for indulging me, make a little video for you all, and then I'll see you all soon.